The Unfiltered Human on the Fringe, Episode 11, Love Without Armor Intimacy, Vulnerability and Trust After Trauma. You're listening to The Unfiltered Human on the Fringe, a space where raw honesty meets uncomfortable truths. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we ask the questions most people avoid. I'm James Miller. We're stepping into the fragile, transformative terrain of intimacy and asking, what does it mean to love without armor? For many of us, intimacy has been tangled with fear of rejection, abandonment, judgment, or betrayal. We've learned to hide behind personas, to perform instead of connect, to protect ourselves from the very closeness we yearn for. This episode marks the beginning of our arc on integration and healing, not by promising perfect love, but by examining what happens when we encounter love from a place of wholeness, rather than wounding. In this episode, we'll explore how past wounds shape our capacity for intimacy, the false self we build to survive a mo danger, what it feels like to trust again after heartbreak, how to distinguish protective patterns from true connection. We'll look at love not as a reward for being flawless, but as an invitation into its honesty and deep mutual care. The mask of protection, framing the wound theme. Love as vulnerability in a guarded world. Love, at its essence, requires emotional exposure. But for many of us, love has been associated with fear, abandonment, betrayal, or performance. This section explores what it means to approach intimacy without the defenses we've built to survive, and how those defenses, while once protective, may now be preventing the very connection we crave. We ask, can I still open my heart after being hurt? And if so, what kind of strength does that require? Attributes, narrative reflection, cultural insight, emotional tone setting. This part invites a softened honesty, the kind that sets the tone for the rest of the episode. Through personal story and psychological grounding, we examine early wounding and collective conditioning have taught us to fear vulnerability. The section opens the emotional landscape and encourages an unguarded look at the self beneath the shield. So let's start. We live in a world that tells us to toughen up emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. We're taught to guard our hearts, never to need too much, to avoid being too sensitive. Vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, and strength is confused with stoicism. In this world, many of us have become fluent in the language of emotional distance, carefully curated self-images, silent suffering, and surface-level intimacy. But beneath it all, there's a deeper truth. Human beings are wired for connection. Not the kind of connection that's performative or transactional, but one that touches the raw, unpolished parts of us. One that requires presence over perfection. To love without armor means to remove the protective mask we've worn to survive, and instead allow ourselves to be seen. The irony is that what protects us from pain also protects us from love. So, how do we begin to let love in without losing ourselves? Personal reflection. To love without armor means being vulnerable, to come from the heart unconditionally. It means loving, caring, sharing, listening, supporting, being empathetic, and showing compassion without calculating risk or withholding parts of myself. When I was younger, intimacy was mostly physical. Emotions were kept at a distance, hidden behind charm, humor, or performance. Over time, that changed. These days, I find far more meaning in quiet moments where presence, attention, and curiosity take the place of performance. I want to know what drives someone, what they ache for, how they see life, what they want to create with the limited time they have. I've always worn my heart on my sleeve, but I've also come to see how dangerous that can feel in a world where honesty is often misunderstood or exploited. Vulnerability used to feel natural. Now it feels like a longing ache. There's a subtle grief in wanting something real, in expressing a desire or need, only to watch it dissolve into silence. That may sound pessimistic, but for me, it's been a lived truth. Still, I haven't given up on trust. I've always been the kind of person who gives others the benefit of the doubt. I trust first until I'm given a reason not to. But recently, that belief has been shaken. I've found myself wondering, can I trust again? That thought doesn't sit well in my soul, because while it's easy to say all women or men are the same or no one's trustworthy, I know there are people who are different, people who deserve our openness. One moment that stays with me is when I once connected deeply with someone through an online conversation. The emotional intensity built quickly. Eventually, because of this intensity, things drifted apart, overwhelmed by our walls. But what came next was unexpected. They reached out, took full responsibility, and admitted they had pulled away. That level of honesty, of emotional accountability, was one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. It reminded me that love isn't just in grand gestures. Sometimes love is in the courage to say, I messed up and I see you. Psychological insight, defensive attachment, and the false self. British psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott coined the term false self to describe the persona we create to survive environments where our true emotional needs are unmet. Children in these spaces often learn to suppress their authenticity to avoid rejection, criticism, or abandonment. They grow into adults who smile through pain, minimize their needs, or play roles to be accepted. In relationships, this protective false self becomes armor. We show others what we think they want to see. We people please, avoid conflict, or intellectualize our emotions. And while these behaviors once served us, they slowly become barriers to the very intimacy we long for. Neuroscience supports this too. The brain's limbic system, particularly the amygdala, scans for threats constantly, even social threats like rejection. When triggered, our nervous system prioritizes protection over connection. We may freeze, fawn, flee, or shut down, often without realizing why. To love without armor, we must first become aware of the armor. We must learn to differentiate fear from intuition and performance from presence. This isn't about eliminating all defenses. It's about becoming conscious of when fear is leading the conversation and gently choosing something else. Insight prompt. When did you first learn that it wasn't safe to express your true emotional needs? What roles or masks do you wear in relationships to protect yourself? What might be waiting for you beneath the armor? Theory in action prompt. Take 3 deep breaths. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Ask yourself silently, what would it feel like to be loved without needing to earn it? Notice what comes up, sensations, resistance, memories. Don't judge it. Now journal your response to this. What part of me still believes I must perform to be worthy of love? Conclusion. Loving without armor doesn't mean being naive or exposing yourself to harm. It means making conscious choices to meet connection with presence rather than protection. It's about knowing your boundaries and your softness, and learning to trust the difference. As you continue this journey through intimacy and integration, may you become fluent in the language of emotional safety. May your trust in yourself grow stronger than your fear of rejection. And may your heart, once guarded, become a place that knows both discernment and openness. In the next episode, we'll explore the roles we play in love and the subconscious scripts that shape our perception of connection. You're not broken, you're becoming. This has been the Unfiltered Human on the Fringe. If this episode stirred something in you, curiosity, reflection, or even discomfort, sit with it. Let it speak. That's where your growth begins. Until next time, stay grounded, stay honest, and keep walking toward the truth that's yours to live. James Miller. If you found value in today's episode, you may also be interested in my broader project, The Inversiverse, a series exploring the hidden architecture of perception, identity, control, and consciousness. Across 20 episodes, The Inversiverse dissects indoctrination, language, media manipulation, dark psychology, belief systems, and the evolution of self in the digital age. You can find all episodes of The Inversiverse on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Substack by searching This Place Called Earth. These ideas aren't shared to convince you, but to invite you to think, feel, and perceive more consciously in a world designed to keep you distracted. Overview of The Inversiverse. A journey through the mirrors of mind, culture, and control. Episodes 1 to 3. Introduce foundational ideas around indoctrination, perception, and manipulation. Episode 4 explores how language, symbols, and cultural norms are used to shape thought. Episode 5 investigates control systems, media narratives, and the illusion of choice. Episodes 6 to 7 dives into collective belief structures and the psychology of mass behavior. Episode 8 focuses on marketing, control theory, game theory, and critical thinking. Episode 9 covers love, relationships, human mating, gender dynamics, and red-blue pill ideologies. Episode 10 unpacks dark psychology, the occult, Satanism, and the dark triad personality types. Episode 11 The Simulated Self examines identity, ego, and the rise of post-human consciousness. Episode 12 The Spell of the Mind inquires into language, illusion, and physiology of thought. Episode 13 Conscious Seduction, Journeys Through Persuasion, Propaganda, and the Unseen Forces of the Mind. Episode 14 The Myth of Sanity sheds light on madness, genius, and the edge of perception. Episode 15 The Algorithmic Mind probes influence, identity, and invisible architects. Episode 16 The Noise of Knowing reveals overload, obsession, and the age of infinite information. Episode 17 Belief Machines delves further into language, desire, and the engine of reality. Episode 18 Submerged Signals examines how the unseen shapes the self. Episode 19 The Alchemy Within Traces, Food, Frequency, and the Forgotten Intelligence of the Body. Episode 20 Encoded Flesh scrutinizes and opens up to the forgotten language of the body, DNA, and biological consciousness.